My uncle wanted to prove that our family on my mother's side were United Empire loyalists, which led him to follow the family genealogy from Upper Canada to Lower Manhattan to Holland and finally to Germany, from whence we had departed sometime in the 16th century. Who are my kin? It's kind of easy to trace that genetic link and claim my ancestors as kin. Were the people in my rural southern Ontario township where I grew up kin to me? If one of them happened to show up on my doorstep in Ottawa, would I welcome them in and give them a place to stay? At first, I have to confess, I was wondering, why did Reed Sherman choose this text from Matthew about love as a centerpiece of today's Indigenous prayer service? And I discovered it was because kinship in the Indigenous prayer tradition is similar to Jesus' understanding of friendship. Now, kin is broader for Indigenous people and encompasses creation itself, the animals, the plants, the rivers, the lakes. Essentially, all things are kin to me. And that included the Europeans when they arrived. All were kin. All we walked beside as equals, as friends, as partners in the care of creation. And I was trying this week to imagine a world on this continent if we had followed that pathway from the beginning and embraced each other as kin. Surely the outcome for Indigenous people and for the European explorers would have been radically different if we had walked with each other, beside each other, embracing each other as kin and loving one another as friends. A few years ago, I tried to begin a friendship with a colleague who seemed somewhat isolated. And so I started off with lunch each month, but it quickly became apparent that there was really only one way. If his agenda wasn't on the table, then there really wasn't room for talk. And if there wasn't room for two in a friendship, then it's impossible to proceed. Which again left me pondering the question of what are those qualities of friendship? As one commentator asks, how do you organically love your neighbor? My ponderings kind of came to this. Friendship is about mutuality, about the readiness to go the second and even the third mile, about standing beside and with each other, about affection and affirmation, and about Jesus' way of loving the other as you love yourself. There was a question in a stress management tool for clergy which asked, who would you call in the middle of the night if your car broke down? And how many times have people who suffered a critical illness said to me, I discovered who my friends are. If we had been kin with the Indigenous people from the beginning, if we had been friends with the Indigenous people from the beginning, the world around us would look so much different today. It might well be a world of abundance, of fresh water, of air that was pure, of animals and plants, of a deep respect, not only for creation, but for each other, as equals, as partners, as friends. In the world of ethics, of making decisions on the basis of what is good and right, Jesus' twofold summary of the law is rather a good yardstick. Will my decision, will my actions in this situation increase the love of God and increase the love of my neighbor? If we apply that to our relationships with each other, how do our actions fare? How do our daily lives lived in the light of Jesus' summary of all the law? And today, what judgment can we place on our relationship with Indigenous people of this territory by those of us who are Methodists and Presbyterians and Congregationalists, Would Jesus say that we have fulfilled the law? Most likely not. We're a long way from being kin, from loving our neighbor. And we're only beginning after 400 years to understand what it is that we have done, how we have not been kin and not been good neighbors, and where that path to reconciliation begins. Our acknowledgement of the red dress day and the placing red dresses in shirts in our trees is a beginning. Canadians who in likelihood never heard of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission have now heard how the treatment of thousands of Indigenous children who attended residential schools run by our Christian churches after the discovery of the 250 children, 15 children buried in the Kamloops school. And with the murder of the 4 members of the Fazal family simply out for an evening walk in London, Ontario, we know that we have allowed hate, in perhaps its most evil form, to ferment in this time and in this place. Friendship, I think, begins with that acknowledgement that we are fellow human beings on Turtle Island, and that we all have a place on this fragile planet. Friendship, I think, begins with this acknowledgement that we are all kin. Kin to the created world, and kin to each other. And friendship begins with Jesus' invitation to love our friends, to love our kin as we love ourselves. And then we can walk side by side, embracing each other. And then love will overcome. Love will redeem. And yes, love will reconcile. The time has come. My sisters and brothers, we need to begin that journey of kinship today, from this place and from this moment. May God's Spirit be our guide and our hope. Amen.